Okay, we're live. We're going to take a look at some Canadian news clips. We're going to start this one off with CTV. The title is Where Are Canadians Traveling? Then we'll kind of make some of our way through the rounds, look at some other clips in Canadian media, just kind of a general overview of what is trending right now in Canada. Let's take a look.
Welcome back. With events in Venezuela, there is plenty of questions about travel to that region. So what are Canadians thinking about? Where are they thinking about heading this winter? Lauren Christie is a travel analyst, long-time CTV contributor. We've reached him in.
I don't think before or after the events in Venezuela, they were considering Venezuela. I mean, maybe if you're a very adventurous travel vlogger and you want to get some crazy shots of Caracas, but I don't think anyone, no offense, was considering Venezuela. Maybe 10 people total in the country for some bizarre, not bizarre, but some obscure reason.
Toronto, always good to see you, Lauren.
Nice to see you, Todd.
As I mentioned, the world's focused on Venezuela. We talked to some travelers yesterday in the newscast concerned about heading to Cuba, one of the countries named by Trump. What are your thoughts? How's that going to affect travel?
Cuba, yes. I mean, people do travel to Cuba a little bit. I've never been to Cuba. I don't want to go to Cuba. I've heard pretty bad things about the travel in Cuba. Again, no offense, but I'm sure there are pockets if you're very wealthy, but I think as an average traveler, I mean, if you're going to go down there, I think Mexico is just clearly better. But Cuba does come up like on those sell-off vacations websites and things like that. By the way, if you're in the chat, I'm not even looking who's all in here, but if you're in the chat, feel free to say hello in the chat and comment on whatever you want.
Will it affect?
I will get the chat on the streams in the future, like so when you do chat, it'll pop up here in the little bubble or something like that.
Vacations to that part of the world.
Well, certainly you're seeing on websites for airlines and whatnot talking about flight disruptions and whatnot and who to call and where to talk to. So there's a lot of chatter. A lot of people are concerned. I think you will see some sort of disruption, even if it's just people having anxiety about going there. As with anything that happens that comes out of the Trump administration, we have to kind of wait and see because you don't know if it's just chalk or what will happen. But definitely you are seeing concern and you know, clients and customers are reaching out and talking to, you know, the various airlines and tour operators and hotels about what their options may be.
Would you have any recommendations?
I don't even disagree with that because when you talk to the Trump administration, if you got to wait to see if it's talk or actual policy. A lot of what the Canadian media does, I think, is Trump derangement syndrome. But to that point, I agree with. You don't know, like Trump does say a lot of things. You don't know exactly what becomes policy. A lot does, but yeah, you got to kind of wait and see.
For anyone who's already plunked down the money and booked their ticket?
I would just wait and see a little bit longer. You know, no one has said that you're going to get, you know, free cancellation or free whatever. So if you really, I always say if you're a vacationer and you're really, really stressed out about this, it's just not worth the money to force it on yourself. But if you're okay, I would just wait and see for the time being and just see how this plays out a little bit longer. This is all fairly new and there's a lot of noise out there right now.
There certainly is that. So where are Canadians looking? Let's start with the winter. Are there any trends that you've spotted?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. One of the places that's become really popular over the last year or so is Japan, and that continues for the winter. People who are on ski vacations, Flight Centre has reported that they're seeing increase in bookings.
That's pretty interesting. Japan actually is not as far away, maybe as you would think. I think a flight from Vancouver to Japan is about 8 hours, so that's not bad. A lot of other places in Asia, 14 hours, 15 hours. From Vancouver, so 8 hours. I mean, it's definitely long, but not that much longer than a place like Hawaii.
To Japan, particularly for ski.
Or even Dominican Republic. The flight from Canada to Dominican Republic or Cuba or Venezuela is very, very long, actually.
Which I think is really interesting for a winter vacation. When it comes to sun travelers, you know, we just talking about the Caribbean, we're seeing a little bit of diversification when it comes to the Caribbean. So with increased flight lift to places like Turks and Caicos, St. Lucia, Barbados, still the traditional markets like Mexico, DR, Cuba are popular, and Mexico, I think, still remains the #1 for winter vacation. But it's been interesting to see people looking for something a little bit different than the all-inclusive vacation and going to some of these other islands.
Yeah, okay. Look, let's talk a bit about the vacation season, the summer season we just had. The numbers look to be really robust across the country, really good here in the Maritimers. You're from this part of the world. Do you think that's a bubble, a one-time event, or do you think we're in for a bit of a trend here and we should be ready for more arrivals?
I'm hoping for a trend. Destination Canada said last year was a record-breaking year. I think you are going to see, a lot of Canadians, they're not really interested in traveling to the United States right now. The records you see a report.
So this, I think, is the more interesting part of the clip, because they kind of get into the politics of the elbows up, and if there's a dynamic that Canadians are saying, okay, Americans, you come here to travel, but we're not willing to go travel in America. Maybe that's certainly not fair. Another thing I want to point out, it's maybe not even worth mentioning, but him, can we cut this out? This doesn't seem like it's for anybody. Maybe a few trans people like this, but this more so seems like just a virtue signal. And then people look at it like me and go, okay, cool, bro. Him. I don't know. This just seems like something that probably could be left in 2020. Everyone can see your him.
After report, I think the latest one from Skift, the Megatrend said 62% down in Canadians going to the U.S. last year. I think you'll see that continuing. I think the geopolitics play into that, but I also think the loonie. And so I think there's a reason why Canadians will stick close to home again this year. I think it's just affordable. It feels safer. So you're going to see that. But I also think internationally, we've seen a bump from people who perhaps want to come to this part of the world, but maybe don't want to go to the States. And so they're coming to Canada as well. So I think all of that played really well for Canadians last year. So, maybe we won't break another record, but I think you could say that you're going to continue to see good tourism in Canada. We have great product, great people. We're welcoming to folks, and the loonie is a good value for a lot of people right now.
And a lot of international flights now, European flights direct to Halifax, so that's certainly going to bring more folks in.
That was another silver lining of the switch.
The loonie's been good value though for quite some time. Makes you wonder if this is just the normal level now of the loonie, because if you look at just compared to US, we've been behind like $1.38, $1.39, something like that for quite some time.
From Americans, the airlines are picking it up by opening up more routes to Europe for sure.
Let's talk about our American friends. We did see a lot of them coming north last summer, and again, I'm wondering if that's a one-off. We've been this whole elbows up thing, while seemingly supported by a lot of folks who live.
So this is just the implied support that the entire USA and Canada is going to be elbows up. The bubble that the liberal media in Canada exists in is actually hilarious. Not everybody thinks like this. This is just probably 40% of the population thinks like this.
Whole elbows up thing, while seemingly supported by a lot of folks who live stateside, you're also starting to hear things that, well, if you don't want us, we're not going to come.
Yeah, I think it's a fine balance, right? I think, elbows up. I think a lot of our American friends who understood that Canadians' feelings, or hopefully some of them did, understood Canadians' feelings about traveling stateside. But in the same respect, we want those American tourists up. They're our #1 market. We need those tourists.
Canada is such a parody of itself. Canada could be a South Park episode, just elbows up, but no, you guys can come here.
Coming into Canada. And so I think last year, even though we were saying we're not going to come to you, but you can come to us, was okay. They kind of got it. But as that goes on, their tourism industry is hurting. A lot of those smaller operators in border states are hurting. And so if we're doing that to them, I think we have to be really careful about the reciprocal feeling. And if we want American tourist business to come here, I think we need to just make sure that we have those. It's more arms open than it is elbows up, and that's one of the Ontario. A lot of the folks in tourism here had been grappling with that this summer. Is that fine balance between the elbows up and the arms open, and just making sure that.
How about don't be political about it in tourism? I don't know why so much of the world has to be about Trump. The obvious undertone of this is we don't like Trump. So I don't know. Maybe park politics in this one area, tourism.
If you as an individual don't want to travel the States, that's fine. But what we really should be promoting is that you're still our friends, Americans. And if we want them to come here, we need to make them feel that way. If they start feeling unwelcome, they're not going to come. And that will hurt us.
Yeah, no doubt. Lauren, look, you're someone who travels quite a bit.
I don't mind the analysis, though. It was pretty fair, I would say.
Lots in the news today, the last few days, about WestJet and their decreased leg room. But how do you make the experience enjoyable? Nobody.
By the way, I think Canada, I'm probably not correct here, but from my time traveling last year, Canada was the only country where you don't get a carry-on bag for free. You only get the backpack, the personal item that goes underneath the seat in front of you. Every other country that I have traveled in my life, at least, I've gotten the carry-on bag for free. Canada, the only time I've ever had to pay for that. So, and on top of that, apparently WestJet is making the seats even smaller now. I have not traveled since that has been in effect. I think it's pretty new, but what is happening?
He loves going to the airport anymore, but is there a way to make it a little more civil, perhaps for somebody who's heading out on a
I actually like going to the airport. Even with all the rules.
Nobody loves going to the airport anymore, but
I think the airport is awesome. Maybe I'm weird.
Is there a way to make it a little more civil, perhaps for somebody who's heading out on a vacation who doesn't necessarily travel all the time?
Todd, if I can answer that question perfectly, I think we'll all be a lot happier. But I'll just say this: I think pack your patience. Remember, it's not the person sitting next to you that's necessarily causing the issues, or the person in front of you, the gate agent and whatnot. I think, more than ever, pack your patience. And I do think it's funny, Flight Center came out with a survey, which I just thought was kind of interesting. And it was talking about it was a considerate traveler's guide and some of the things that they said to do. And it was quite funny. And this sounds seemingly obvious to me, but things like perhaps don't be barefoot on the plane or in the airport. Perhaps don't chat the ear off next to the person next to you. And it wasn't in the guide, but I'll tell you, one of my personal ones is, it makes me crazy when I see people come with their 3 giant bags and try and shove it in the overhead. If you're going to travel light, I'm all for that.
I'm not someone who's anti-America, but I think those problems are more prevalent actually in America. Whenever I've flown around in America, people act like, man, I don't want to be too rude here, but like farm animals, some of them. Not everybody, but a lot of the flights I've had in America, people are like going crazy. I actually think Canada has more decorum that way than America, at least in my experience. I don't know if the stats would bear that out, but I don't see people acting that crazy in Canada. I know Toronto Pearson, the airport itself, when I'm there, is run not great. It was during COVID. It was very chaotic, but I think the Canadian travelers overall are not too bad. That's been my experience.
I do it sometimes myself, but make sure the bag actually suits the purpose and don't sort of take over other people's space. That's my personal pet peeve. But I think there's a lot of the ones out there. I think you just act like you would, I don't know, out at a dinner party versus, pretending you're in your own living room might be a good piece of advice.
Yes. Good one. Elevate travel once again. Lauren,
yeah. I mean, it's good advice, but I don't know, dinner party, that sounds like it's catered to a pretty kind of a rich audience. I don't know that the majority of people are regularly going to dinner parties. I mean, maybe that's just an older thing that I don't understand yet, but okay, I'm going to go to now another video. I'm going to go to CBC. This one is about J.D. Vance, upset about the media narrative following the ICE shooting. That's another thing that I would say. I mean, there's a lot of things you could say. The reason I want to play this is because I just want to see what they say. I also want to make the point of these Canadian panels. I made the point in a different stream it's never representative of alternate viewpoints. It's always liberal, 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 and then maybe center right or center, but kind of right wing. There's never a right wing perspective on these panels. The right wing perspective in Canada really is just YouTube channels. All the big YouTube channels in Canada pretty much are right wing, which ironically, maybe, I think the people that might be hurt the most by that directly are left wing content creators, because I don't know how you're going to compete with CBC that gets a bunch of taxpayer dollars. They're just going to have way more resources to talk about the issues of the day. Whereas if you're a right-wing Canadian YouTuber, you're kind of competing with other YouTubers, because people are not going to turn on their TV, whether it's Global, CTV, or CBC, and hear what you're going to say. Most of the right-wing topics in Canada, the mainstream news just considers it beyond the pale. Like, that's not what we do here in Canada. So, anyway, we'll take a look at that. Plus, a lot of times it seems like the CBC talks about America, which I feel like, especially if you're getting taxpayer money, you should talk mostly about Canada, but I think this panel is generally about America.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance took to the White House podium today to deliver some harsh words on how the media covered yesterday's shooting in Minnesota, where 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was killed in her car by an ICE agent.
The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace. Everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You
J.D. Vance is so good.
guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws? The reporting over this has been one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen in media. I've never seen a case so misrepresented and misreported when you have a guy who is defending himself and is now being treated as some sort of federal assassin by so many of the people in this room.
Okay, let's start there with our reporter roundtable. Mia Rabson is Deputy Parliamentary Bureau Chief at the Canadian Press. Joël Denis Bellavance is the Parliamentary Bureau Chief for La Presse. And Catherine Cullen is the host of the CBC podcast, The House. It's good to see you all. This is not the week I expect.
So he didn't say what their political affiliations was there, but we'll see. I have a very good feeling everybody is going to be on the side of the Democratic Party here.
We would come back to JD. That was quite the moment, and that was only part of everything that was said. It was like living in the comment section. I mean, where does this leave the media right now in the U.S. in terms of covering this and navigating this, when this sort of lecturing and dismissal of what people can watch on their phones is happening from the most powerful people in the world?
The lecturing and dismissal. What about the lecturing and dismissal on the other side? Exactly. Everyone can watch the footage. It's clearly debatable, I would say, what happened there. There's no way you can watch, meaning, I don't even know how to say this, but the way it's not so cut and dry like he just said there. I'm going to play his remarks again. I mean, it sounds like he's implying that J.D. Vance is just wrong, and that's just a fact.
In the U.S. in terms of covering this and navigating this, when this sort of lecturing and dismissal of what people can watch on their phones is happening from the most powerful people in the world?
I watched the footage, and I don't agree with that. I think J.D. Vance is mostly correct in that. I think that woman in that car was being totally reckless in that situation. What are you thinking? Speeding away. There's a law enforcement officer right in front of her. She puts the gas, bang. Like, what the hell are you thinking in that situation if you're the woman? So right off the bat, CBC's framing this as liberal Looney Tunes.
Is, I think, part of the enlarged Dunroe doctrine, which is to also not only to try to conquer the Western Hemisphere, but also to attack the media. And that's, been part of Mr. Trump's tactics to try to... Again,
who is watching CBC then? This is just going to be a total hug fest. They're all just going to agree with each other for the next 20 minutes, because that's always what happens. Why don't you get at least even one person? It doesn't even have to be totally fair. At least pretend that you're trying to be balanced.
legitimize what he says and make true what is ostensibly not true. I watched this line of attack on TV, and I felt uncomfortable watching it as a reporter. Imagine those who were in the room being lectured and being attacked and being, treated like they were
Oh my gosh. Are we supposed to feel bad for them? Give me a break, bro.
not professional people. Gosh, I'm glad that I was a few kilometers away from that room, because I think I would have walked out barely, just squarely, because this was, to me, the most vitriolic attack I've seen from a leader on the media and the freedom of the press.
Cry harder, dude. Cry. It just sounds like a little baby. Pathetic. Cry harder, dude.
Freedom of the press.
Mia, we've all been in moments like tough conversations with the people you cover, right? I've had the F word and other words used at me by politicians.
No one cares, dude. Nope. Like, oh my gosh, a mean word.
But this is about the killing of a 37-year-old woman, and
So it looks like my assumption is going to be correct, and they're all going to sit around and agree with each other.
like we're less than 2 days into the investigation, and the argument is, don't say this person didn't act in self-defense because he was shooting this domestic terrorist who tried to run him over with a car. It is a remarkable thing to see from that particular position.
I mean, this is a classic, and maybe this is the wrong word to use in this situation, but a classic shoot the messenger tactic. They know that this is a problem for them. There have been growing problems for them with the ICE maneuvers in the United States. There's been growing unrest and unhappiness, even within some Republican wings of the party, Republicans within the party. They know that this is a problem, and they need to undermine what people were.
This is propaganda. This is just straight up propaganda. If you're watching CBC, especially if you're an older person, maybe you're not as tech savvy, I think it's a little bit understandable. You're just going to eventually eat this stuff up. If you're not someone with a YouTube or whatever, you don't necessarily want to go to your Apple TV, or you don't have one, or maybe you just don't have like YouTube. You're just going on old school cable. This is just propaganda. They're all going to sit here and agree with each other. That's not the way this story is. It's not cut and dry like the way they're making it seem.
Saying that they actually saw with their own eyes on video. They don't need this message to swell and come back at them and undermine everything that they're trying to do. And how do you do that? You assert that the people that are reporting on what happened are lying to you, that no, that's not actually what happened. That's, to me, it's a critical part of how the entire Trump administration has operated from the beginning. This is obviously an incredibly step up, or sort of heightening or expansion of how they're doing that, but it's a classic maneuver, and I'd love to think that people won't fall for it, because they can, with their own eyes, see what happened in that video.
Well, there's kind of two messages. Don't believe them. And
we can see it. I watch it. I clearly don't think what you guys think is true.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To both. I mean, Catherine, what are your thoughts on what we saw there?
I mean, I think as a journalist, part of my reaction, thinking about the other journalists in that room, is don't take your eyes off the ball. I do think when you are a journalist in those situations, you understand that this is a political tactic, as Mia was discussing. That's
Why have a panel? This should infuriate every Canadian. We all pay for this. Like, literally, we all pay for this. That's not an exaggeration. Pretty substantial amount of money each year. It's like they get something like $1 billion. I think I don't quote me this. I think it's something like $50 a person per year goes to the CBC. It might even be a little bit more than that. Unbelievable. I'll ask my phone. I'll ask AI as I play this here, how much each Canadian pays to CBC. For what? What's the point of a panel if you're all going to have the same point of view?
playing out here. And let's face it, we all know there's a trust problem with media, right? And so for some people in the audience, this is activating a sort of confirmation bias. Yeah, I don't trust the media. Yeah, I am worried about what they say. And perhaps that allows the message to get through a little bit more easily. And so as journalists, I think our responsibility in cases like that is to double down on the indisputable facts, to double down on the analysis. There is video evidence here. It is clear that different people are coming to different interpretations of what happened based on the multiple angles here. But to
Finally, like, at least she said that. Come on. But it's going to probably get drowned.
present this evidence clearly, fairly, and to keep focused on what this is fundamentally about. The story that is playing out in Minneapolis is obviously incredibly bad for the Trump administration, and that is part of the reason that we're seeing such an intense...
I don't think so, actually. I don't think the situation is going to be bad for them politically. It might even be good because people will see the media trying to spin things, give the Trump administration a chance to show again they're behind, or they have the backs of law enforcement. Plus, if you're talking about the fraud stuff, that would fall, I think, more so on Tim Walz, who is associated and is a Democrat.
Vitriolic leaning in. So keeping focused on what is at the heart of this. And I think, frankly, being careful about the discussion around the media, too, because a certain amount of pearl clutching doesn't reflect well on us. This is challenging. We want there to be free speech, but I think we're all generally uncomfortable talking about ourselves. And I would also say, like, think back to enemies of the people, right? Like the Trump at rallies pointing at journalists. This is not an unfamiliar piece of the playbook.
It just shows that how difficult it has become to do your job as a reporter in the United States right now. It's a democracy. Yesterday, you had somebody on your show that was saying that it's hard to consider today the United States as a functioning democracy.
Yeah.
Well, that's
How hard is it, really? Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. That's what the reporters have been doing for 10 years. Maybe they should learn some nuance, some actual reporting. That would be good for them. Trump bad, Trump bad. People don't fall for that like they used to.
Example. That's one example. When you've got the second most powerful person in the United States attacking the media and its work the way it did today, that makes it even harder for reporters to do their job, to bring information without filters to their readers or their audience. So, I mean, it makes being a reporter in Washington even more difficult.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I asked ChatGPT, recent government and independent reports, CBC funding works out to about $32 to $34 per Canadian per year in public funding from federal taxes. That's roughly less than $3 a month, often described as about 10 cents per day per person. I mean, that's coming, those figures are coming from CBC, which whatever. But still, you're paying $32 to $34 per year for this. It's just, does this represent every Canadian? You can't opt out of this, obviously.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I agree with Catherine. Like, you just have to sort of set that aside and continue to do your job and do it well and report the facts as you know them and not expand on what those facts are. I mean, the media should also not be expressing any motivations for anyone yet because we don't know what the motivations were. So report what we saw, what happened, and let the investigation take its course. If media and reporters allow something like this to change how we report and how we react and what we do the next time or even the remainder of this time, then essentially, he's getting what his intentions are, and we can't let that happen.
But, you know, it's interesting because I don't think this is just a challenge for journalists in the United States, right? No. Like, we're kind of working in this profession in what has really become a post-truth world, right? Like the way that we're all segmented into these tribes by the algorithms and different information silos. Like when I was a young man with hair, and you'd watch Knowlton Nash or Peter Mansbridge and Lloyd Robertson and read the papers, there's a common set of facts, and it is a difficult place for democracies and society to be, right? So, like, we can...
Maybe do your job better and people will believe you. It's because the media has been caught in so much distortion, so many lies of omission. That's the big thing I think that I've seen throughout my life. There's so many lies, there's so much lying by omission, just choosing not to represent a certain side of the story. So... I mean, it makes total sense for somebody to think CBC, Global, CTV are so biased in one direction.
Stick with it, but then when you're dismissed from the White House podium and then the algorithms divide it into a different world, it becomes, does it get through?
I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, although I think part of how I think about what we do has changed dramatically as the media landscape has changed, as social media has changed, and there was a time when people were just, and also I should say, I think a certain amount of pushback is healthy. The media is a powerful force.
But good faith pushback as opposed to bad faith. Yes,
you want people to ask critical questions, but I also think we live in a world where...
Good faith pushback. So, like, to me, the CBC wants there to be a set of opinions that's about this wide, and they probably are so scared and they probably hate that in America, in the last 2 years, I would say that's been totally blown open. It's not maybe the max it could be, but it's probably going to get there. If it's not, I mean, it's definitely way more open than it was in 2022, 2021, stuff like that. People were getting canceled for the most mundane disagreements with the media. And that is starting to happen in Canada. I would just say much slower. Like, think about all the American positions that a right-winger is allowed to have, that in Canada, you're just considered a psychotic freak if you even have these opinions. Pro-Second Amendment. In Canada, you almost can't even be that. Well, we don't have one, but you can't do that as much, nearly be as near pro-gun. Pro-life? People in Canada who are pro-life, would they ever get on CBC and stuff like that? If like you're legitimately pro-life, at least that opinion, I mean, that opinion is a large part of the Republican Party, but people are even to the right of Donald Trump on being pro-life. They don't get ostracized from the world. There's so many other examples of that. You can only be so anti-immigration in Canada. There's a bunch of positions that you really can't have on these mainstream channels.
It's not just journalists taking abuse on Twitter. The person who served me at the coffee shop this afternoon is also being berated more. We're in a society, and we can sort of chicken and egg this whole thing, but a lot of people are dealing with more abuse in their day-to-day life. And I think also, if we want to make a point here that I think goes beyond the journalism itself, part of my fear about what J.D. Vance said is just the fundamental way in which it inflames this already incredibly volatile situation. I know throughout the show, David, there have been conversations about how this might affect the investigation, such as it is, but this is already such a volatile situation, and does it contribute to or lead to more people being hurt or even killed? I think, this is not, it is in no way just about politicians and media. It is about the society we live in and the moment we are all trying to navigate through. I think it makes our work that much more fundamentally important, but it is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, but there's a toxicity there now because of all of this, right? And it's everywhere. And like, I love my career and have gotten to do many things.
Man, this guy's incredible. He says it in a straight, like he doesn't get emotional in the way he talks, but he keeps bringing it back to being basically afraid of different opinions. Oh, but there's a toxicity there. Probably he's just referring to opinions that aren't mine.
But if I was like 24 again, I wouldn't do this. I'd do something else, because all of this and the abuse and the harassment, it is pretty profound.
But I want to argue that we're going
Oh my God. What do you have to deal with? Mean words on Twitter?
through some cycles. And to my colleagues, Catherine's point, I'm more optimistic today about the nature of my job. Because
okay, I'm going to go somewhere else because I don't think this really is going to change. This guy, by the way, I mean, I've watched a few of these panels. I feel like he's just whining this entire panel about the big bad right wing disagrees with me, especially in America. They talk about Chrystia Freeland stepping down. I've already kind of covered that. I'm going to go to a different video. Put up my image there I got. Nice image of the Oscars. Just kidding. It's just some random graphic. But I'm going to take a look now at this person here. So Jasmine Lane, I would say she's probably the best YouTuber in Canada right now. I would rank her number one. Yeah, 197,000 subscribers. She does really well. Her videos, by the way, also do quite well. So I'm going to take a look at what she's saying, because honestly, if you want the right-wing perspective in Canada, you have to go to these channels like Jasmine Lane. So we'll see.
Does that not?
We'll just kind of poke through her video. So here's clip of Vashi Kapelos, I think, from CTV, and Scott Moe, the premier of Saskatchewan. Let's see what happens here.
Does that not undermine the business case for an additional pipeline?
Well, the race is on anyway.
None of this is happening by accident. According to the left, pipelines no longer make sense, just as competitors undercut us. And you will not believe the bizarre excuse given by a former politician that I guess is supposed to try to make us feel better. Pierre Poilievre dropped a new video that makes
Yeah, the Polyev video, maybe we'll check that out. So I'm just going to kind of go through different parts of this video, mostly the clips or things she's commenting on, and we'll see what happens here.
Or current economic denial.
This is an important conversation. I think what happened in Venezuela is putting further emphasis on the importance of our energy sector here in Canada. Now, both Venezuela and Canada have similar bitumen, but not the same environments. Canadian oil is low carbon, low cost compared to Venezuela, where they don't have the same infrastructure, they don't have the same environmental regulations. And so there is an issue in terms of where is our market going to be? The U.S. is a market for us right now, but this is an opportunity for Canada to further dive into and for the government to further dive into what does it mean for pipelines.
I frequently disagree with Sharon Carr, who is a former Liberal staffer and now a political.
It's incredible that it's not so blatantly obvious we should build the pipeline. It should have already been built, but we are so obsessed with carbon in Canada.
Pundit on CTV News predominantly. However, I agree with her here. But there is this really bizarre framing happening.
I agree, but I don't think it's going to happen. The pipeline. I think the anti-pipeline crowd is still going to win.
This to say.
The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country.
Yeah, so this would have been during the campaign.
Think about it. If they succeeded, they would destroy our way of life.
And before we pick this apart a little bit more, I just want you to focus on the immediate contradiction there. If the United States...
What is our way of life? Because lately, America, at least it has its own problems, but has a growing economy, things like that. I think many people in Canada would trade, at least economically, the situation in America in a heartbeat. You should. If you don't think we should do that, I think you're out to lunch.
Are they political?
His only commitment in his memorandum of understanding with Premier Danielle Smith is to declare such a pipeline to be a project in the national interest that can be referred to the Major Projects Office for consideration of designation under the Building Canada Act.
Instability.
So Polyev is correct here. Lately, I've been pretty impressed with Polyev. During the campaign, I thought he was weak, but lately I've been pretty impressed again.
On a broad scale, your weakness.
We don't have time. We don't have time for bureaucratic games and signing ceremonies, given that the Liberal government killed a prior and very similar pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific back in November of 2016, and given that Mr. Carney endorsed that decision to kill that pipeline, and given that there are present-day Liberal MPs who still say that they are opposed to the project, we should doubt whether this Prime Minister is serious about getting it done. And there's only one way for him to prove it. Approve it.
And
I agree. I actually think, too, that if Polyev was in power, I think he would push the pipeline. I believe him. He seems very adamant that the pipeline should go through. The reason I became more optimistic, or the reason I kind of switched my opinion a little bit on Polyev, I liked what he said about, I think it was with Donna Friesen of Global, when she said, what if the Indigenous leaders, after you meet with them, still say no? He's like, it doesn't matter, essentially. He's like, whatever, I'll thank them for their input, but nobody gets a veto. I think that's the right attitude. I would add that for like the environmental activists. These people need to get out of the way and go, if you care about the environment, go work at Tesla.
We thought we had a common language around some basic things, even though we've had lots of troubles with the U.S. over many years. I think watching the U.S. leadership and the way they're handling this tragedy today is another underline for Canadians to say, maybe our American cousins are more distant cousins than we thought, politically, ethically, legally, and that one...
Oh my gosh, dude. This person's nodding along. Are you kidding me?
Crossing the border should not assume much of anything anymore, really, in terms of how we're going to be treated, how our family's going to be treated, and especially if you don't happen to look like me and Peter, that there's a strong, strong indication from this government that the way you present yourself is all they need to justify to treat you as second, third-class citizens.
In that clip.
Oh my gosh, bro. I think this guy's nodding along like he agrees too. I think that's a conservative. Who is conservative in this country anymore? That was pure Trump derangement syndrome. That was crazy. I have not heard that clip yet. That was, I another panel on CBC. I kind of want to go watch that panel because my goodness, dude.
Refineries in Canada.
We have been talking about refineries for decades in this country. When I was a politician, the Northwest Upgrader was approved and went into action. That was a very difficult project to manage. We don't have refineries, and we do not build greenfield refineries in Canada. They're just too expensive. You have to build them to where the population is. I've had many conversations with.
Okay, I'm gonna go to a different video here. I'll take another look at some other YouTubers in Canada, see what they're doing. Okay, we got this person here. Oh, hold on a sec. Okay, we have this channel. I've actually never even looked at this channel before, but I've seen them. I've seen them on. One sec. I've seen them on like them on X, but I have never went to their YouTube channel, so pretty interesting. They got a big YouTube channel. I wonder if they took this from another channel. They just transformed this over, but we'll take a look at their recent video here. Carney under fire as looming China trip raises security concerns. Mark Partone.
Hoping to warm up relations with a country he once called our biggest threat, a country that interfered with our affairs. Here's what Carney said about China during last year's election campaign.
We didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally. I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah.
Mr. Singh.
Freelance. Last night at the debate, you said the single greatest threat facing Canada was China. I'm hoping you can expand on that a little bit and tell me a bit about how our current relationship with the U.S. impacts that threat, and specifically how you would stand up for the sovereignty of Taiwan, given the current chaos and uncertainty.
Well, there's several aspects to China. I'm very clear-eyed about China. It is the second largest economy in the world. It is our second largest trading partner. It is also, and I'll choose my words carefully, given that I'm briefed on these matters and have my security clearance and do that. It is one of the largest threats to, with respect to foreign interference, which we have to counter, and we are countering.
So why would we want to have a closer relationship with one of the world's bad actors, a country that interfered with our elections, stole our intellectual property? Well, for one thing, our trade relations with the United States have soured, and so Carney wants to lessen our dependency on the U.S. market. But is there a security risk to improving our relations with a country that spies on us? There are an estimated 2,500 undeclared foreign agents in Canada.
Okay, pretty interesting stuff there. I guess that wasn't really exactly what I thought it would be. Let's take a look at Moose on the Loose, see what he's up to. Moose on the Loose, another really big channel. Let's see what he's talking about here. Might go to that CBC Power and Politics panel. No internet, what the heck?
Clearly wasn't.
Yeah, here we'll move.
Clearly wasn't something Carney thought out. It wasn't something he was maybe even aware that she was going to do.
She might have been. They admit it on CBC. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today, the CBC admitting that Mark Carney's quest for an undemocratic majority is basically over. This nonsense is over, and likely there will be a spring election. They said it themselves. We got by-elections coming. We've got some polling data. We got some other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this off, we got David Coletto, Abacus Data, saying he just ran Abacus MRP using 3 months of data data from the end of 2025. Here's the results for University Rosedale, one of the by-elections. This is Chrystia Freeland's riding, who just stepped down the other day, and Liberal 68%, Conservative 17, and NDP 12. This is not surprising. This is a Liberal stronghold. And with this Liberal stronghold, there's a take here on CTV, which I thought was pretty good here from this NDP analyst, where I think she nails this.
Mark Carney has always kind of said he's not a politician, even though, you know, he proved that he was a pretty good one in recruiting people over to his side of the aisle. But how much of a test are these by-elections going to be for him as a political animal as well?
I think University of Rosedale in particular will be a test for whether he can attract an all-star candidate, because that's a seat that's a pretty safe Liberal seat. That's the kind of seat where you want to cherry pick someone with an excellent resume who in a general election in any other seat, you'd never be able to get them to leave their job and to run. This is a great opportunity to be able to say, like, look, you're somebody I want to put in cabinet. We're going to line up University of Rosedale for you, and you'll be an MP for years to come. It's a great.
So she's right with that. I don't think she realized what's going on here. She's right in saying University of Rosedale, Chrystia Freeland's riding, is perfectly set up for an all-star candidate, and Mark Carney trying to recruit. I don't think Carney's really recruiting that much. He knows who he's bringing in. He's got all his banker buddies here. And by the way, Chrystia Freeland, I didn't realize this. She went to Harvard the same years as Mark Carney. They have 2 years of overlap. I think they know each other from Harvard. Just a little tidbit there. Mark Carney's got his A-team that he's bringing in here. It looks like they just updated all my icons. Mark Carney has a bunch of people, I'm sure, that he's ready to bring in, so he'll probably bring in one of his heaviest hitters for that University Rosedale riding. It's not like he's having to really recruit. I'm sure once he gave Doug Guzman the nod here, he jumped at this, leaving his big high-profile position at RBC as a wealth management deputy chair for capital markets. He was making a crap ton of money doing that. He took a big pay cut to take this job, if that tells you anything. These guys aren't doing it out of the warmness of their heart. They're all greedy shills. We got this power politics panel here on CBC where they basically admitted that a spring election is coming because Mark Carney can't get his majority. He can't get anything done. He's passed one bill, which was just the one that the Conservatives let them get through to go around all the other Liberal bills, and Carney's done nothing.
Prime Minister there, when he says we'll have a by-election, by-elections, very deliberately plural, because Mark Carney's a very precise man. Does he just mean Chrystia Freeland and say Matt Genereux, or does he mean also Bill Blair and Jonathan Wilkinson? Like, what do you make of that?
I think he's leaving options open, which is not a bad thing to do. Like, there's been lots of speculation about what Bill Blair and Jonathan Wilkinson and Chrystia Freeland were going to do. We've known, like, there has been a slow roll of Chrystia Freeland's departure over the last couple of months over the fall. So I think he's being smart and leaving that open.
It's not smart. I mean, Mark Carney knows that there's a bunch of Liberals who don't like him, and he doesn't want them in there, frankly. He wants to get those guys out of there. He wants that old Trudeau stank out of his party. He keeps saying it's this new government, but it isn't the new government. Most of them are the same. He wants to get them out of there. And I think, frankly, some of them don't like Carney. I don't think Wilkinson likes Carney. Wilkinson is an eco wingnut, and he's realizing that Carney is a fake eco wingnut that is just trying to profit, where I think Wilkinson is actually an eco wingnut, just like Stephen Guilbeault. So will Guilbeault be doing a by-election? Is he stepping down? Obviously, Wilkinson probably cut some deal to go be an ambassador or whatever. Same thing with Bill Blair. And that's why
Moose on the Loose, I'm actually quite impressed how much knowledge he has on Carney's cabinet. These people he's bringing up, I'm not even aware of who these people are. So shout out to Moose on the Loose. It sounds like he's got his finger on the pulse of, like, the inner workings of what's happening in the Carney government. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive. I just more understand it at a higher level. But, one sec. Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to try to find another panel here on CBC. I'd like to find that one where that guy was just going like, I don't know what the title of that video would be. I'd like with Peter MacKay, where they're discussing people going into America. That was a just totally unhinged comment there. We'll go to this video here. The title is Minneapolis Council Member Says Fascism No Longer Theoretical in U.S. Let's see what they have to say here.
New video of this week's fatal shooting of a woman by a federal immigration agent. It shows the tense final moments as Renee Good is confronted in her vehicle by ICE. The video was leaked to a right-wing news outlet, Alpha News, and then shared online by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. A warning, these are graphic images.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. It's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Oh! Good. Today, the mayor of Minneapolis continued to say video refutes the president's claim that Good ran over the agent and hit back at the administration's claim about crime in that city.
I have heard countless people talk about Minneapolis, many of them who have never been here, as some form of post-apocalyptic hellscape. 50% of the shootings that have happened thus far in Minneapolis this year have been ICE. In other words, we've only had 2 shootings. One of them has been ICE.
Jameson Whiting is a member of the Minneapolis City Council, and he joins me now. Councillor, it's good to see you, sir. Thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start, if I could, with this latest angle, this latest video released from the cell phone of the officer involved in the fatal shooting of Renee Good. What do you make of what you can see in that video, and do you think this changes any understanding of what happened in this incident?
Yeah, you know, David, I think we are seeing multiple angles. I know our team.
Yeah, we kind of already covered this. I'm going to find a... Let's go to actual Canadian issues here. There's so much, though, when you go to CBC, it's so much of it is other countries. Iran, USA, Trump, Iran. Like, I'll get the thing out of the way here. USA. I think that's Iran again. There, Freeland. Okay, there's one on Canada. That's crazy. 8 videos here. The first one is the 8th video. It's actually on Canada. Canada again. USA. USA, Greenland, Denmark. USA. USA. USA, Greenland. USA. This is insane. Israel. USA, Canada, Iran. What the heck, man? Let's see what Global News is talking about. That actually sucks that there's so many videos on other countries. Canada reassessing. We'll play this video here. Canada reassessing trade with China as priorities shift. But probably won't build a pipeline. But is very serious about diversifying away from America. But pipeline bad.
Prime Minister Mark Carney will head to China on Tuesday as many Canadians reconsider how flexible they're willing to be when it comes to international trade. A new Ipsos poll for Global News finds 54% of Canadians support closer trade and economic ties with China. It's a sharp contrast with 2020, when 8 in 10 Canadians said they wanted less trade with China, as that country...
Wow, that is quite fascinating. I haven't heard that yet. Holy, 8 in 10 wanted less trade with China. Now it's 54% apparently, if you believe this poll. Man. I mean, what do you attribute that to other than Trump? I would say that's just Trump shifting the opinions of 30% of Canadians. That is unbelievable.
Detained the 2 Michaels. When it comes to new trade deals, 71% of respondents say the financial benefit to Canadians is the top priority, followed by opportunities for businesses at 66% and human rights at 60%. Less than half consider environmental standards and shared values the top priority.
That's still quite a bit. 46% of people share who say each factor is critical or very important. Benefits, human rights. I guess this is just what matters most in trade deals. Okay, this isn't about necessarily China, I don't think. 46% say environmental standards. Like, man, David Suzuki and the environmentalists really did a number on Canadians. 46%. That's critical or very important.
The other big shift I think that we're seeing is that this is really about what now for Canadians, what is in Canada's economic interest and what is in the interest of individual Canadians when it comes to their own personal prosperity.
The poll shows Canadians are split on their trade values. 25% say Canada should only trade with like-minded countries, even if that means lower economic growth.
Oh, roughly people think that, obviously. I know that's so crazy. Yeah, I want to hear what she said again.
Lower economic growth. Even if that means lower economic growth. 5% say Canada should only trade with like-minded countries, even if that means lower economic growth.
What do people think Canada is? This economic superpower? Where do people live? Does everyone that responds to these surveys live in like a mansion in Banff?
Roughly equal proportions believe in selective trade to pursue human rights or pragmatic trade regardless of countries' values. Only 16% say Canada should focus on protectionism.
Donald Trump's takeover of Venezuela's oil.
Okay, that's CBC. But I don't want to see this video. Let's go back to Global. See what they have to say. See, again, a lot of this is not Canada. I don't like this. Let's get it. We're on Global here. Syria, Canada, Venezuela, USA, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, France, and Trump. And I guess Canada's in there a little bit. Iran, USA, Canada, USA, USA, Canada. Probably Canada. Not Canada. USA. Venezuela. Jeez. So why can't Canadian news be more Canadian? Is there just nothing going on here? Man, no wonder everyone's so obsessed with Trump. Almost half these stories, maybe not half, but a lot of them are about Trump. I'm going to go check out the video from Polyev that he posted because I think it's quite good.
A major political...
Okay, if you've seen this, we'll take a look at this video from Polyev. It's titled "The Starting Pistol Has Fired." And I'm pretty sure this video is basically a pipeline video. I haven't seen the full video, but I saw a little bit of it.
A major political fault line shifted in Venezuela Saturday morning as the United States arrested Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro after a quarter century of socialist tyranny. That's a good thing. Canada did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. And with him out, we hope Venezuelans will finally be able to enjoy freedom and democracy. Now, I've called for the recognition of the legitimate winner of the 2024 election, Edmundo Gonzalez, along with the courageous hero and voice of the Venezuelan people, Maria Corina Machado, and I'll continue to do so. Ultimately, Venezuelans must be allowed to choose freedom for themselves. But This moment also resets the clock for global energy markets. And this is why it matters to Canada. For the past decade, Liberals have blocked Canada from producing the oil and gas needed to replace Venezuelan oil that the U.S. was sanctioning. Those sanctions could end soon. Venezuelan production could return to its historic levels of 3.5 million barrels per day, up from the current 1 million barrels. That additional Venezuelan oil is heavy crude, similar to Alberta's oil sands, which means it will compete directly for scarce U.S. refinery capacity. In fact, many of the refineries that use Alberta oil today used to use Venezuelan oil and may go back on it. Each Venezuelan barrel the Americans take could be 1 barrel less they take from us. So we need other customers fast. That's why we must immediately move to approve a pipeline to the Pacific Coast. Prime Minister Carney has not clearly stated that he would support such a pipeline. His only commitment in his memorandum of understanding with Premier Danielle Smith is to declare such a pipeline to be a project in the national interest that can be referred to the Major Projects Office for consideration of designation under the Building Canada Act. In a lot of words to say effectively, he'll send the project to a new office for years of consideration and study and an eventual decision. We don't have time. We don't have time for bureaucratic games and signing ceremonies, given that the Liberal government killed a prior and very similar pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific back in November of 2016, and given that Mr. Carney endorsed that decision to kill that pipeline, and given that there are present-day Liberal MPs who still say that they are opposed to the project, we should doubt whether this Prime Minister is serious about getting it done. And there's only one way for him to prove it. Approve it. That's why the official opposition is calling on the Government of Canada to approve a new pipeline to the Pacific within 60 days of receiving Alberta's forthcoming proposal. Carney.
Do you think the pipeline is going to get approved? Because I'm very skeptical. I just think there'll be more meetings, more bureaucracy, more. I think some people, even if Carney wants to get it done, he's going to have to be, I think, very bold, and he's going to have to piss off a lot of people in his own party. I just don't know if that's going to happen.
He will then have had over a year as Prime Minister, having been elected on the promise of building at speeds not seen in generations. He only needs to do one thing to make this pipeline happen. Get out of the way. Now, that might seem simplistic, but it is actually that simple, and here's why. There are hundreds of billions of private dollars looking to invest in wildly profitable projects like this one. So we can get the private funding to build it. 6.5% of Canada's energy and trades workers are unemployed and available to get working. So we have the labor force and we have the resources right under our feet. The only thing missing? A permit, a federal permit. The courts have already ruled that premiers cannot block interprovincial pipelines and that First Nations do not have a veto, only the right to be consulted. Therefore, there is only one level of government with the constitutional authority to approve or reject the project, the federal government, and only one person with the legal authority to decide for that government under Bill C-5, and that is the Prime Minister himself. Only Mark Carney stands in the way. It's time for him to get out of the way. Getting out of the way is all the federal government needs to do to relaunch our entire resource sector and secure our economic sovereignty. Liberal anti-development laws and regulations are all still in place. High taxes on investment and energy, still there. We have among the slowest permitting in the entire world. These are all federal blockages. Getting them out of the way is the method and the means for retaking control of our economic sovereignty. I'm not here just to point fingers. I have a plan to make Canada stronger, self-reliant, and sovereign. In fact, I call it the Canadian Sovereignty Act, that in one bill would get the government to repeal growth-blocking laws that Liberals put in place and make it impossible to build pipelines, mines, and other projects. Second, it would end the industrial carbon tax, which raises the cost of everything Canadians make and buy. it also makes our energy and resource sectors completely uncompetitive. It drives up the cost of making steel at the very time our steel industry is hit with steel tariffs. And finally, it makes it more expensive all the things you need to build a home or for farmers to grow food in the middle of an affordability crisis. Get rid of that tax. And while we're at it, scrap the oil and gas cap that kills jobs. End the EV mandates for good, not just delay them. It will increase the cost of a car by $20,000, and it's already hurting Canadian automotive production. Why not get rid of that mandate so that we can produce more internal combustion engines people actually want to buy here in Canada? Lift the plastics ban for Canadian consumers as well as Canadian producers. Turbocharge our economy by eliminating the capital gains tax on reinvestments in Canada. That would be like economic rocket fuel for our economy. Our sovereignty hinges on our government getting out of the way and allowing Canada strong to be more than a slogan. We don't have time for more meaningless Liberal signing ceremonies and photo ops. We can't wait for more of Carney's too clever by half compromises, protracted negotiations, sneaky one-time exemptions for a favored few companies and cronies. We can't afford Liberal failed cabinet ministers picking and choosing projects for political reasons while capital waits on the sidelines until it gives up and goes elsewhere. It's shameful that an energy-producing province like Alberta, which should be the engine of national economic growth, had to negotiate a conditional promise and a non-binding MOU that Liberal MPs won't even endorse. I have a real plan to unblock our economy, secure our sovereignty, boost our dollar to lower the cost of living. Conservatives stand ready to work with any party to stop stopping and start starting. Because after all, the race is on.
I think a good video. I'm going to finish the stream there. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Have